I have kind of like a nervous, happy feeling thinking about dreams, and do you like dreams?
Love dreams.
Yeah, yeah, do you? I just feel like
Sometimes.
sometimes, that right, yeah, sometimes, yeah, exactly. But I noticed that these days, when I remember a bit of a dream, I get kind of happy. Like I think I got a gift. I love a gift, and I get frustrated when I can't. That's okay, thanks. When I can't really remember them, or they're just so vague that I can barely like recall them. But today I want to go into the whole thing with you about starting to go into a certain level of reality and dreams, and then today particularly like early dreams or early memories. And I wanted to start with a kind of a question, which is like, what is a dream? And simultaneously say that, as far as I'm concerned, dreams and dreaming is kind of operating at a level of reality where there's not consensus. So if that's true, then there's probably may not be ever consensus on what is a dream. That said, I did look up on Wikipedia. I was curious to see what Wikipedia would say about a dream, and I thought, that was kind of interesting. What Wikipedia was saying is a dream is a succession of images, ideas, emotions, and sensations that usually occur involuntarily in the mind during stages of sleep. And the content and purpose of dreams are not fully understood. I appreciate them saying that. Although they have been a topic of scientific, philosophical, and religious interest throughout recorded history. I guess that's somewhat mainstreamish. Yeah, but yeah, I like Wikipedia. And then I looked at something that Jung had said. And Jung was saying, we have forgotten the age-old fact that God speaks chiefly through dreams and visions. I thought that was a trippy thing. Somehow I like that.
You think somehow we have forgotten?
Yeah, that somehow we have forgotten the age-old fact that God speaks chiefly through dreams and visions. Yeah.
What?
Chiefly.
Chiefly.
Good word.
Bang, bang.
Yeah. So, so that said, let's see. Let's say a little bit. Maybe I'll say, and you can also say what you think. But I noticed that, yeah, I think that sometimes dreams have kind of more topical, causal relationships with things. Like I think I've heard. I don't know if I've had this experience, but I've heard people say, or I've read that sometimes you can have spicy food, for example, and then have dreams that seem to be about that. Or you have to go to the bathroom at night, and so you have dreams about it. Okay. Or you have a fight, conflict in the daytime. Maybe you have a dream about that. I think that level certainly exists. But I also think that, particularly looking at things like, well, let me just slow down a little bit. Like I think dreams seem to have like a non-local nature, in part. Yes, causal, okay, but maybe also acausal, meaning that maybe there's things that in a sense cause dreams, yeah, that stimulate dreams or stimulate the probability that you'll have a dream based on some event going on in life. But their dreams may also be acausal. They may have like non-local connections. Yeah, they may have some non-local aspects to how they express themselves. And I think that's really cool. So for example, I'm jumping ahead a little bit to my lecture, but I'll jump back, is that thinking about like early dreams, sometimes early dreams seem to be predictive, that they're, in a sense, one way to think about early dreams is that maybe they're offering us a snapshot of what will come. They're giving us maybe a little bit of a gestalt about who we might be, what our life might be about. And I think that's just like, wow, fantastic. And then I also think about when I get a dream where I feel like I understand it a bit, I'm almost invariably impressed because the intelligence behind the dream is far greater than the intelligence that I'm aware of in say, Bill. Yeah? I don't know about you, but it's like who thinks up this stuff, or who creates this stuff? Yeah? And so I love this idea that Arnie's kind of formulated of the dream maker. At least I think that's one of his ideas. Maybe he has learned that from some other dreaming tradition. But some part that, say, is cooking up our dream life. Yeah, I think that's really an interesting thing to consider, is like background forces that may, for example, express themselves in dreams, in certain pathways in life, in certain journeys that we find somehow almost fated to take. Yeah. Again, this is a very like a non-consensual realm, like, you know, dreams, what they mean, where do they come from, etc. So in one of Arnie's books, he has this great little anecdote where he was, I think, at the seaside with his dad, and he said something to the effect of, it's like, well, Dad, you know, there's wind here. Don't the waves come from wind? And he said, yeah, to some degree, yeah, sure. You know, waves could be influenced by wind. But you know, apparently his dad knew other things too, because he said, but the greater forces that impact and influence waves is actually the gravitational pull of the moon. Yeah. And he was using that anecdote to suggest that yes, there may be maybe smaller, more temporal, causal factors that give rise to dream content, etc. But there may also be like sometimes unseen, almost like gravitational forces that influence dream life or life itself. And I think that's really interesting. We consider background forces, like say like moon's gravitational pull, that may pull on our dream life and give rise to particular themes or symbology or meaning or direction. Feel free, by the way, you can jump in at any point. So then, in thinking about, for example, nighttime dreams, because I think in process work, as I think you know, there's also the idea that dreaming is going on all the time. We don't have to just be asleep at night to, in a sense, be in connection with dreams and dreaming. That dreaming may be happening, for example, right now with us. How so? Yeah, how so? What's in the dreaming of us right now? You're smiling. Curious. Let's see. What's that?
I'm just thinking of a book that Diane was read to, called Mutant Message Down Under, about the Aboriginal tribe. And the author was having a conversation with one of the tribe members about dreaming, and they say, yeah, we don't dream at night because that's resting time. Why would we waste time on that when we could be resting? And we dream all the time. And you people don't know how to dream when you're awake, so you only can do it when you're asleep.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So here's a thought. This would be interesting to see. So sometimes at the beginning of an event, it's interesting to notice what arises. Like you're seeing a brand new client. What happens in the very first interaction on the phone? They walk into your office and there's some kind of phenomena that happens. And it's interesting to note how that phenomena may, in a sense, inform what happens in the session, or may happen in the span of their body of work with you. Or you start a relationship, or you go into your first day of work, or whatever it is, and you notice what's happening here right at the beginning. And this is also something we're going to explore with First Dreams. But I was thinking today, not all of you had arrived yet, but there was some stuff around negotiating hugs. Yeah, yeah. And so just thinking about it, and then I noticed it came up again, like this idea of consent that came up in a check-in. If that's okay to reference. But just also consider, is that part of our dreaming process a bit today? Something around the negotiation of relating, something like that. So I'm interested. It's like I noticed that when I was thinking, what's our dreaming process today? I went back to those first moments of the group, stuff around hugs, negotiating hugs or not. I was thinking, is that a dream of sorts? So in a consensus reality way, we'd say, no, that's not a dream. That's something that people are talking about, etc. But to your point, yes, but that would mean that we're only limited to thinking dreams are these things that happen at night when we're asleep, rather than maybe there's a dream happening right now, and let's see what happens if we explore it. Yeah. So. With the idea of what happens early on in life, there's this idea that comes from Jungian psychology, but also process work, that one's overarching theme of life, call it a life myth, may be reflected in one's earliest dream or memories. And I think that's it's a really interesting idea, and I think it's actually an interesting practice. So I'd say most clients that I work with, for example, doing one-on-one work, I usually ask them about their early dream or memory. Because for me, even if they're dealing with, say, business problems, relationship problems, family problems, internal conflicts, etc., the early dream or memory helps me contextualize the work that I'm doing with them, whether it's a short body of work or longer, longer body of work. So what to say about the early dream? I only have a few things here, but a few things come to mind when I think about it. Like I notice in listening to people's early dreams, not infrequently, a certain kind of social context arises. There's like an environmental element to the dream. Sometimes it's like the person's family scene, or sometimes there's things about their relationship to the world. So I notice that in dreams there seems to be important contextual elements involved. And then the other thing that's often there is there's often, not infrequently, some kind of significant relationship or conflict involved that seems to be also something that people tend to carry with them. And I think that the early dreams seem to, I'm using seem a lot here, point to a significant area of conflict. And sometimes that conflict also suggests what may need to be reconciled in a life, what needs to be integrated. Because not infrequently, there's an element of the other. There's the self in the dream, or there's something that's that implicitly suggests the self, the young self. And there's something that also seems to represent what is not the self, what is other. And I think we've used this here, and if you've taken process work seminars, we talk about this X factor. Yeah, it's like the not me. Yeah, especially in some kind of a disturbed. Wow, this thing really smells. Talking about X factors. Wow, that's yeah. So disturbing, and disturbing to what we call a process work to you. And I don't know if this stuff is mathematical, because Arnie's a physicist, whether these are terms from physics or mathematics, but I like it because of the versatility of thinking about U and X in all kinds of different situations without getting hung up on the particular, for example, the particular personalities of the people, or some of these things. I think we can translate it into well, in this given moment, this is my you, the part that I will say identified with, and this is the X factor that I felt disturbed by in this given relationship, in this setting, et cetera, et cetera. So far so good, or any questions? Or? Yeah,
I have a
please.
question. So with this, there's like the self and other energy of a dream.
Mhm.
Because when I think of a dream, or at least how I've approached like dreams before is like, you know, there are different characters or
Mhm.
energies that present themselves and you can kind of take on any part of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it's more like when you say the other, it's like that the energy is like how you relate to it's like how you relate to that energy is more othering versus
Right. So
like settling or like you want to identify with that.
right. Right. So if I'm understanding your question, it's like, let's say I have a dream where I'm being chased by a tiger and I'm being protected by a